Well, just where we are as a church, as you all know, we have continued to meet now. I don't know the exact number of weeks, and the city of Los Angeles and the county and the health department and all these people have tried to get a temporary restraining order to shut us down, and they can't get it because basically we filed a lawsuit against the city and the county on the First Amendment, that we have freedom of religion, and that amendment trumps every other ordinance. And the way to understand the First Amendment is this. The First Amendment says that we have a God-given right to worship, and the Constitution exists to protect that. It's not that the Constitution gave us that right. It exists to protect that God-given right. That's the way the Founding Fathers laid it out. So they would like to get a contempt of court against us. They would like to take away our parking lot. They've tried a whole lot of things, but they get stuck every time in front of this massive wall called the First Amendment. And the judge keeps saying, until that issue of the First Amendment is litigated, we can't get onto anything else. So they try to go around it and under it and over it, but it doesn't work. So the judge set a hearing date for November 13th. That's the next time there will be a hearing. That's not a trial. That's to set up a trial, which supposedly is going to happen sometime in 2021. By the time we get to that point, I think the expiration date on the pandemic will have run out. And so at this particular point, we just keep meeting, and we can park. And these dear people down the street, the Jewish people, said, you can use our lot, and we've got 150 parking spaces, and we'd love to have you use them, and you can use our facility. And we said, great, thank you so much. So the Lord just continues to allow us to meet, and we're very, very thankful for that. So there's no restraining order against us. There's a $500 fine every week by the health department, and they're here on Sunday to check, and then they send us the $500 fine. But that fine accumulates in an escrow account, and they don't get it until this case is litigated. So we have basically been able to keep doing what we're doing, and incredibly thankful for that. In fact, the people at the synagogue, very gracious people, said, we love the fact that you're meeting and you're worshiping God, and you haven't succumbed to this government pressure.
That's great.
So that was great. In fact, I was told that the gentleman who's been working with us at the synagogue was here this morning.
Hey, Tim Frisch with A Frisch Perspective here. That was Pastor John MacArthur of Grace Community Church giving an update recently in a question and answer session, and I will leave a link in the description below this video to that Q&A so that you can watch the whole thing if you would like. But that was a really interesting update that he gave on the church's situation in California, where they are continuing to meet indoors in spite of government restrictions. It's just great to see how God is providing in their situation, and I thought that was really cool, the relationship that they've developed with the local synagogue there, and that the people of the synagogue are actually really behind what Grace Community Church is doing. And it sounds like one of the people actually was attending church on Sunday. So that was really, really a cool thing to hear. It's also interesting to hear that the health department is fining the church every week, but it sounds like the church can't actually officially be fined and have to pay those fines until the whole case is litigated. And so those fines are just being put into an escrow account. What's interesting is he talks there about by the time the case actually comes to a full court trial, it'll actually probably be next year, although there's some sort of a preliminary hearing on November 13th, I believe. But next year is the full trial, and by that time, I've pointed this out before, that things are going to be pretty different probably in terms of the COVID-19 situation and the restrictions by that point. So that'll probably have a bearing on the case. That wouldn't surprise me. And he says it, I like the way he puts it, the pandemic will be past its expiration date. So that's a good way to say it. But it's really interesting to see what's happening, because when he initially took his stand, people really reacted strongly. And a lot of people were for it, a lot of people against it, but clearly there are people in his local area that have seen what he's done. I know the local police have been behind him. We're hearing about this synagogue that's in favor of what he's doing. And I personally think that a lot of people have this mindset that we don't all have to react the same way and do the same thing, but we can definitely be behind other people who are doing something that we see is good, and they're doing what they believe God wants them to do to the best of their knowledge. So I know there are churches out in California that are seeking to follow the guidelines more, and yet are probably actually really happy to see that Grace Community Church is taking a stand and doing well. And other churches are following in the same track as Grace Community Church and are continuing to have indoor services. So every church is doing what they believe is right before God, and I think that's how it should be. I think we should try to be supportive of one another, whatever decisions we're making on this, again, to the best of our knowledge. And of course, I have to keep reiterating with churches like Grace Community Church that are open, there are some people that react so strongly and they say, well, that's just foolish and it's going to spread the virus and it's going to cause problems. I understand where people are coming from because of what we hear a lot. And of course, it needs to be said that the COVID-19 situation does have some seriousness to it, and we should take it seriously. At the same time, I've said this so many times, I do think it can get blown out of proportion, and we have to be careful that we're not just living our lives in fear. I had someone who recently asked, what are the statistics right now with Grace Community Church? And to my knowledge, there has not been an outbreak of COVID there, and there are not actually any problems from what we see from them meeting indoors. We also have to keep in mind that people are always doing things, whether it's going to the store, going out and about. We can take certain precautions, but at the end of the day, we are going to be exposed to some things no matter what. So I know people are going to continue to have different opinions on this, and of course, if you'd like to give your opinion, I'd love to hear that in the comments below. Just try to keep your comments positive and helpful to discussion. But overall, the update from Grace Community Church sounds like things are going really well. They're going to continue to meet indoors definitely through the rest of this year, and then their case will fully come to court sometime next year. And again, probably the overall scenario of the COVID-19 situation will be quite a bit different by then. So I think in many ways they've already had success because they are continuing to meet, and the government really isn't seeming to be able to do anything about it at this point. So that's the latest update. I thought you'd be interested in hearing that, and thank you as always for listening to what I have to say from A Frisch Perspective.